Citizenship on the Go. Lesson 2. American Government. Principles of American Democracy. Part 1. The Constitutional Convention. This lesson describes how the U.S. Constitution was created and how it was ratified, or approved, by the 13 original states. It discusses the basic structure of U.S. government and the democratic principles that went into its design. Learning about the history of the Constitution and the foundations of U.S. government provides a clearer understanding of the rights all Americans have by law. U.S. residents and U.S. citizens, equipped with a knowledge of the principles of democracy that have been at work in this country's systems of government since the beginning, are better able to identify their personal rights and to effectively push for changes that matter to them today. During the Revolutionary War, it became clear that the 13 original colonies needed to work together as one if they were to have a chance of breaking away from the British Empire. Even after British forces had surrendered to George Washington's military and the war had officially ended, many Americans believed they were at risk of falling back under British rule. They argued the 13 colonies, now the 13 states, needed to set up a strong central government to avoid losing the independence and self-government the colonists had fought so hard to win. The new nation's motto, E Pluribus Unum, reflected the idea that we all become one. Another translation to English for the motto E Pluribus Unum is out of many, one. Many founding fathers supported the principle that the only way the 13 states would survive was by joining forces to become one country. In 1787, representatives of 12 of the 13 states came together to make a plan for how the government of their new country would work. Over the course of 5 months, delegates from Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and South Carolina met to discuss what kind of government the United States should have, and to debate how the different parts of the government should work. The series of meetings at which a plan for the government of the United States was mapped out is now called the Constitutional Convention. Many of the state representatives who attended the Constitutional Convention for months on end in 1787 were men who had signed the Declaration of Independence 11 years earlier, had fought against the British in the Revolutionary War, or had played other important roles in establishing self-government for the United States of America. Today, these men are often referred to as Founding Fathers of the United States. One of the most famous and influential founding fathers was George Washington. Washington was chosen by the other members of the Constitutional Convention to lead the meetings and to oversee the debates about how U.S. government should work. Washington also participated in these discussions as a representative of his home state, Virginia. Another important founding father who attended the Constitutional Convention was Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton had served as aide to General George Washington during the Revolutionary War. During and after the war, he was a member of the new nation's Continental Congress and helped establish the first bank of the United States and the U.S. Treasury. Hamilton was a firm believer in the need for a strong government to unify the nation. After the Constitutional Convention, he wrote many of the essays we call the Federalist Papers, in an attempt to convince Americans to vote in favor of the system of government described by the Constitution. As a representative of the state of New York, Hamilton also participated in many key discussions held by the Founding Fathers at the Constitutional Convention. The founding fathers who attended the Constitutional Convention had many different opinions about what laws should apply to the whole country and about how the government should operate. Among other things, they argued intensely about how the legislative branch, or Congress, should be set up. Roger Sherman, a representative of Connecticut, helped end this debate by suggesting Congress be divided into two parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Sherman's proposal, sometimes called the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise, called for each state, no matter how large or how small, to be assigned 2 senators apiece, while the number of representatives a state was allowed in the House would be determined by the state's population. Agreeing to the Connecticut Compromise meant that there would be equal representation for small states in the Senate, but states with larger populations would have more representatives in the House. The system Sherman proposed is still in use in the U.S. Congress today.
After many debates and deliberations, the members of the Constitutional Convention settled on a plan for U.S. government most of the delegates found acceptable. In September of 1787, Washington, Hamilton, Sherman, and a majority of the other founding fathers who had attended the convention's meetings signed the Constitution. This important document is still the supreme law of the land in the United States. All the people living in every state and territory of the U.S. must obey the Constitution. State governments cannot make laws that go against the Constitution.
Since the Constitution is what forms the government and defines the parts of government, the Constitution also defines the responsibilities and powers of the President, senators, representatives, judges, and other members of U.S. government.
New U.S. citizens take an oath promising to uphold and defend the Constitution.
Civics test question. What founding document was written in 1787? What founding document was written in 1787? The Constitution. The U.S. Constitution was written over the course of several months in the year 1787. Civics test question. The nation's first motto was E Pluribus Unum. What does that mean? The nation's first motto was E Pluribus Unum. What does that mean? We all become one. By together declaring their independence from Britain during the Revolutionary War, and then by writing and ratifying the U.S. Constitution, representatives of the 13 original states came together to form one country, the United States. The nation's first motto, E Pluribus Unum, means we all become one, or out of many one, reflecting how the 13 states came together to form one union. Civics test question. Alexander Hamilton is famous for many things. Name one. Alexander Hamilton is famous for many things. Name one. One of the writers of the Federalist Papers. Hamilton was heavily involved in the debates and discussions in 1787 on what the parts and powers of U.S. government should be. To help people understand how the new Constitution defined the parts and powers of U.S. government, and to encourage voters to approve the Constitution, Hamilton wrote many of the essays called the Federalist Papers. These essays are still studied by U.S. lawmakers and judges today. Hamilton participated in the founding of the United States of America in many other ways as well. During the Revolutionary War, he served as an aide to General George Washington. Before the Constitution was written to define the parts of U.S. government we're familiar with today, Hamilton was a member of the earlier Continental Congress. He helped establish the first Bank of the United States, and he worked as the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. Civics test question. Why does each state have 2 senators? Why does each state have 2 senators? Equal representation. At the writing of the Constitution, many important decisions were made about how U.S. government would work. Although the Founding Fathers disagreed at first about what the parts and powers of Congress should be, they finally settled on a plan for the legislative branch of government that would allow for equal representation for small states in the Senate. The agreement to follow this plan, called the Great Compromise, or the Connecticut Compromise, is still active today. Each state of the modern United States, no matter its size, still has 2 senators in Congress.
The oldest of the Founding Fathers to attend the Constitutional Convention in 1787 was Benjamin Franklin. Franklin participated in the convention as a representative for the state of Pennsylvania. Because he was older and more experienced than the other delegates, many of them looked up to him. On several occasions when arguments about how U.S. government should work grew heated, Franklin was able to step in and help both sides calm down and come to a compromise.
Franklin also helped write an earlier document that had an influence on the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Years before the Constitutional Convention was held, Thomas Jefferson had asked for Franklin's help with writing the Declaration of Independence, which says America is free from British control. The Declaration of Independence, adopted in 1776, contained ideas about equality, about liberty, and about other natural rights that influenced what the Founding Fathers decided to put into the Constitution 11 years later, in 1787.
Franklin is also remembered for many other things he did to support the United States in the early years of American independence. Franklin was a U.S. diplomat. As a diplomat, he helped the U.S. establish international alliances and keep the 13 original states on good terms with France and other nations. Franklin was also the first Postmaster General. He contributed to making the U.S. postal system what it is today.
Another thing Franklin is famous for is founding the first free public libraries.
Franklin believed that it was important for all Americans to be educated, no matter their economic class. Free libraries were a way to give everyone, no matter how rich or how poor, the chance to learn.
Civics test question. Benjamin Franklin is famous for many things. Name one. Benjamin Franklin is famous for many things. Name one. U.S. diplomat. Franklin was a notable diplomat for the United States. He's also famous for founding the first free public libraries, for serving as the first Postmaster General of the United States, and for helping write the Declaration of Independence, a document which later influenced the U.S. Constitution. In addition to all these contributions to the American Revolution and to early U.S. government, Franklin is remembered as a groundbreaking inventor. Civics test question. Many documents influenced the U.S. Constitution. Name one. Many documents influenced the U.S. Constitution. Name one. Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, written during the American Revolution by Thomas Jefferson with Benjamin Franklin's editorial help, contained many influential ideas that Franklin and others decided to work into the U.S. Constitution. The representatives of the original states who formed the U.S. government by writing the Constitution had many different ideas about what the parts of government should be, and about what powers the parts of U.S. government should have. They were influenced by many documents that came before. In addition to the Declaration of Independence, documents that influenced the U.S. Constitution included the Mayflower Compact, the Virginia Declaration of Rights, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, the Articles of Confederation, and the Iroquois Great Law of Peace. Later, the Federalist Papers, written by Alexander Hamilton and others, influenced how people understood the Constitution and had an impact on changes made to the Constitution as time went on. The Anti-Federalist Papers, which argued against some Federalist ideas, had an influence on amendments, or changes, made to the Constitution as well. Civics Test Question. Name 2 important ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Name 2 important ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Equality and liberty. The Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal, and argues that any good government must recognize the equality of its citizens and take measures to protect those citizens' liberty. The U.S. Constitution was influenced by the Declaration of Independence and uses other words to imply the same ideas. Both documents affirm that people have natural rights the government should never take away, and as a result, both argue to some degree for limited government. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution both describe self-government as the ideal for the nation and picture the U.S. government as not forced on people by a king and his soldiers, but based on social contract, with citizens together choosing to have a government and to follow its laws. Civics Test Question. There were 13 original states. Name 5. There were 13 original states. Name 5. Virginia, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. At the Constitutional Convention, Washington was a representative for the state of Virginia, Hamilton was a representative for the state of New York, Sherman was a representative for the state of Connecticut, and Franklin was a representative for the state of Pennsylvania. Representatives were also present from most of the other 13 original states, including Delaware, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Just one of the 13 original states, Rhode Island, did not send a delegate to the Constitutional Convention.
When Franklin, Washington, Hamilton,
and other founding fathers
met in 1787 to write the Constitution, they agreed they wanted to set up a government very different from the government of the British Empire. They did not want an unelected king or queen in charge of the government. Instead, they wanted the people of the United States to have self-government.
According to the Constitution,
citizens of the U.S. should be the ones to choose the nation's lawmakers, president, and vice president. The first three words of the Constitution are not "I the King" or "I the Queen." Instead, the Constitution begins with the words,
"We the people." These three words are used to emphasize that the United States is a republic in which the people have self-government through chosen representatives.
The government of the United States is made up of citizens from throughout the country. The people of the United States form the government themselves, and they choose their representation in government by voting.
Because who is in government depends on the choices of voters, and voters' chosen representatives can change how the system works, the government is said to exist only by consent of the governed.
The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. As the highest law of the United States, no state or federal regulation can be made that goes against the Constitution.
The Constitution does several important things. It forms the government, and it defines the parts of government. It also defines the powers of government, setting out rules about what each part of government can and can't do. The Constitution includes laws that protect the basic rights of people in the United States, making it illegal for the government to take away certain freedoms. According to the supreme law of the land, the government should never punish people for exercising their constitutional rights. Civics test question. The U.S. Constitution starts with the words, "We the people." What does "we the people" mean? The U.S. Constitution starts with the words, "We the people." What does "we the people" mean? Self-government. By starting with the words, "we the people," the Constitution argues that people should govern themselves, rather than be governed by an all-powerful king or queen. Lawmakers in Congress and many other officials in U.S. government are chosen directly by the country's citizens, which means they hold their positions with the consent of the governed. This is an example of a social contract, or of popular sovereignty, where the people, by law, have a strong say in who is in government and in what the government can do. Civics test question. What is the supreme law of the land? What is the supreme law of the land? The Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is above all other laws in the United States. It is the supreme law of the land. Civics test question. Name one thing the U.S. Constitution does. Name one thing the U.S. Constitution does. Forms the government. The U.S. Constitution forms the government by defining the parts of government and by defining the powers of government. The Constitution sets limitations on what different parts of government are allowed to do, in order to safeguard the rights of citizens and residents of the United States, too. By listing rights the government is not legally permitted to deny anyone in the United States, the Constitution protects the rights of the people.